You're watching SoundTree TV.
And good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to, what is today? Today is Wednesday, October 22, and welcome to the third installment in our special series of Wednesday with Wayne here with KORG SoundTree TV. We're delighted all of you could join us here today, and I love that applause track, man. that is really cool. And we have
all the time.
We have to continue to give props to Ken Green, the master graphic designer. You know, our favorite part of our favorite part of it is nothing more. It starts with the test pattern, something from the days of yore when cable TV went off at midnight at night, and we'd be sitting there listening to it all night long. That and the clock on a VCR that you never bothered to set and would just keep flashing 12, 12, 12. But we digress. Anyhow, thanks for joining us today. Again, this is the third installment in the series, and we started with various discussions on why teach music technology, and last week's session was centered on how to build and design a lab. This week we want to take it a step further, and I'll come back to this in a second by recounting a story that happened for us recently when Ken and Wayne and I were together at the NAFME Eastern Division Conference in Hartford, Connecticut. I guess, guys, that was back in April. And together we had put together a series of clinics and workshops, like how do we teach? What do we want to teach? We had built a mini keyboard lab there for the teachers, the attendees, to come and just try out the different types of keyboards that we have, a range of workstations, or there are special lab keyboard, the sound key, the KORG Nautilus, just a Whitman sampler, if you would, of the different instruments that we have. And I'm struck by, as we completed one of the sessions, and Ken and I were kind of both working in room at the same time, but a very well-intentioned teacher that was obviously very highly educated and just came up and passionately said, "Help, my principal has told me I've got to teach music technology next year, and I don't know what to do." Byline, I'm a very fine classically trained pianist, and I know how to do all that stuff, but that's not necessarily the direction that we want to go. And she did not know where to start. She had one or two acoustic pianos in her classroom. I think was working with some very inexpensive keyboards they probably picked up off a major shopping site, and that was that, but did not know where to go and help to develop it. So as we conquered this question today, this is also, frankly, sort of a setup for next week's session on, and we invite you back on October 29th, which is how to develop engaging lessons and develop your own curriculum that meet the needs of your students in that regard. So that's sort of the big setup. But let's come back to that major premise. Help. My teacher or my principal has told me I need to teach music technology, and what do I do? So my two master educator colleagues in front of me, there's an element of storytelling that kind of goes with this, but we want to draw upon both the wisdom and experience of Wayne and Ken here to hopefully help encourage those of you who are able to join us today to think about, okay, what should I be thinking about? How do I get started? All right. So with that as a prefacing question, Wayne, let's jump to you. We know you've built this amazing program in Torrington, but when that day came that not so much the principal came to you, but you sensed an opportunity to build something, and away you went. Do you mind sharing with us how that whole thing developed, and excuse me, what were the various touch points along the way, please?
Yeah, thanks, Walt. So people don't know me. I'm Wayne Spletsdozer. I teach at Torrington High School in Connecticut. This is my 31st year teaching high school. 29 of them have been here in Torrington. When I first arrived in Torrington in 1996, the music tech class was started the half year before I got there by two teachers that left. So there was really nothing left that I could start with. I had no training in college. There wasn't back then. You couldn't go to an area high school. You couldn't go anywhere to find stuff. You just had to figure it out on your own. So the program here really started from literally nothing. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know we had Mac LC 280s for those of us that remember those big beige cubes back in the day. I didn't even know how to turn it on. That's how clueless I was. So over the years, I would just try stuff like spaghetti, throw it against the wall and see what stuck. And then over the years, I started to develop. I put a website on because I was always tired of losing papers and losing things. So I figured I can't lose a website. And then I would develop the website and keep things on. And then I could always refer back to what did I do last year? What did I do 2 years ago? And that has evolved to what my program is right now. And my program's ever changing. And it's ever changing because the kids are always changing. I have a link on the website where teachers can ask for help. I don't know what to do, like today's topic. Since 2020, I think I've done over 120 free Zoom sessions for teachers literally all over the world, and they're all the same. I have to teach this, and I don't know what to do. So there's a lot of information with this, but the best advice I can give you throughout this whole thing today is you got to do what's best for your kids. You know your kids. All our kids are different. All our situations are different. We all have very diverse populations in various ways. We have administrations that want certain things. I was talking to a woman out in California, and she's like, my principal says if I don't get 20 kids, they're going to put me 0.8. Or, I have to build it up because our numbers overall have not recovered from COVID, and they want to see more numbers, and we have to get more kids involved. So that's usually where the conversations start. So I basically sit with people and say, okay, what do you have available? Is there anything for you to use? Are you starting from scratch? Is the other teacher doing it and not doing it? And it varies on the situations, but it always starts with help. And a lot of music teachers never had this in college, so they never had the training on this. Or we've been teaching ensembles the whole time, and all of a sudden, bam, technology, it's exploded since COVID. Now most schools who never had a technology program, now they're infused with technology and trying to get this involved in all the classes. If you're listening and you're trying to justify why we should start it, I'm going to give you one thing that has worked with most people across the country. Music tech classes will reach the other 80% of your building. Usually your 20% is your band, chorus, orchestra, your ensembles. But then there's the 80% of the population that's not being serviced by that. That's where this comes in. And the beautiful part about technology is it can be whatever you want it to be. You don't have to look at a school and go, I have to do it that way because, this bald guy from Connecticut says, well, this is what he does. No, you can do whatever you want to do with this. You can pick and choose from now. There's all kinds of examples. You can just type in high school music technology lessons, middle school music technology, elementary school, and you'll find teachers have all kinds of information out there. You have to pick and choose what's best for you based on what your resources are. I mean, what do you have available to you? Do you have a lab? Do you have software? Do you have anything? I talked to a woman, I think it was Texas or Delaware, had literally nothing. Yet the administration said, you got to teach it, go. So what do you do in that situation? Every situation is different. So first thing is, what do you want to teach? What has been left for you there to teach? And then that will help you develop lessons. All the teachers that I've worked with and talked to, they all go, I just need help. I need lessons. What am I going to do this week? What am I going to do next week? What am I going to do here? Because they didn't have the resources, or the district doesn't have any resources for them. So there's basic things that you can cover. And this could be for any level, elementary, middle, high school. You can do composing various ways. You can do it with notation programs. You can do it with DAWs. You can do it with cloud-based sites that have instruments built in. In terms of software, I always get, what should I buy? I'm a big proponent of cloud-based software because most schools now are one-to-one. So every child is walking around with their own personal laptop from the district. The days of having computer labs are kind of going away, I'm seeing, because of the one-to-one nature. Most of those one-to-one laptops are Chromebooks. So you can't install, you can't have all the fancy stuff in those cases. So cloud-based is the way to go. But you can compose, you can do remixing, you can do sampling. podcasting is huge right now, and you can very easily do that with a Chromebook and various DAWs. Um, Canva is becoming extremely useful in schools. Canva is a multifaceted publishing program where you can do everything from presentations to Word documents to your social media posts. They have video stuff in there. I do a lot of video-based projects with my kids. And then you can also get other cloud-based services like Music First. They have a whole suite of software available. And then the next question is keyboards. What should I get for keyboards? I don't recommend buying big, huge keyboards with all the performance aspect if they're just a lab, if the kids are just using them with computers and you're not using them for course performances or anything else. If you're buying keyboards that have to serve multi-purposes, then of course you need to get what you get. But nowadays, 49 key station keyboards are very cheap and they can fit into any situation. Whereas again, where most of us high school, middle school are one-to-one with the laptops, they're very portable. And I'm finding, and then talking to districts, that space is an issue. So they don't have a lot of space. So you can't use 88 key or even 61 key. A lot of times you got to use 49 key. After that, should I get microphones? Should I get this? Should I get that? The answer is, can you? Most of you, it's that, hey, okay, I help, I need to do this, but I have a budget. You got one shot to build your lab, to build your program, because administration is not going to go, okay, here's more money next year, here's more money next year. You got one shot to do that. So that's like what I did. We moved into our new school in January, and I contacted SoundTree, and we sat down and we built, a beautiful system here. But it all started with, here's what I want to do, here's how I want to teach it, how can the equipment help? So from keyboards to microphones to software, whatever you can get to help you, that's what you do with your kids. One word I want to leave with you is engaging. How is it going to engage your students? These kids are being immersed in technology all day long, and some kids are almost too much. So, they need to get off their laptops and do something, textile with like a keyboard or a launch pad or DJ equipment, something that's not just type all day long. So how can you vary up what you're going to do with the equipment you have for the lessons you want to do that'll make it engaging for your students? So that's what I've seen. That's how I've built our program here. And any questions anybody has, feel free to ask.
Sorry, I need to unmute. But thanks for taking us back to the very beginning. If a music tech lab is a tree, we know that there's multiple branches, and there is for those, it might be someone who just wants to teach piano skills on one end, and on the other end, and certainly you had podcasting. You just alluded to that, get them away from typing. So there's DJing, there's all these other elements. Can you quickly trace us through, okay, you're now in this situation. What were the first, I'm going to call it curricular fights or curricular mountains that you chose to scale that brought you then to this point? Can you talk quickly about the evolution of that?
Yeah. I think for me personally, I had a skill set of lessons and stuff that I've been doing, because I've been doing this for 29 years. So I have a large bag of tricks that I can always fall back to. But I get bored, and I kind of like, okay, I get bored with the class. So I always have to try new things and try to expand on things. So, and as educators, we shouldn't be afraid to try new stuff. Yes, all of it's not going to work. There are some times where, for example, I had a great lesson on sampling a couple years ago. I'm going, this is going to be great. We were going to sampling. We're going to talk about the 70s, 80s. And I thought this was going to be great. We start this lesson within 10 minutes. That thing blew up in my face so bad. I knew it was bad when I had the, my music kids, my band kids, the orchestra kids, and they're all going, I don't know what to do. So backtrack it, sampling, reworked it. So now we include sampling. DJing for me has been the one hill that I still haven't found a slick and cool way to get it in. I show them it, I do some things, but I find a lot of kids don't go to the DJing because you have to have a sense of time, and it takes a little practice to get it. And most kids are just instant gratification and want to move on. Modern band is something that we're looking at moving into in the next year or two. So we have those facilities and the equipment there to do it. But again, implementing it in a way that is good for our kids. I've seen other schools do it, but what works in XYZ school may not work in my school. So again, for those of you watching this, don't just go, well, this school does it all, so I have to do everything that school does. No, you got to kind of pick and choose for you and your kids, and ask your kids. I ask my kids all the time, hey, what do you guys want to do this year? Anything that you see on the list of day one of the class that I didn't cover? So kids go, yeah, we want to do beats. We want to talk about beats. So great. So we talk about different style of beats. We do like these beat challenge websites where all the 3 or 4 classes, okay, we put a vote out to the school with audio clips so they can all hear them, and we vote, and I give a kid a $25 Amazon card. It keeps them engaged, things like that. The whole school gets involved, which is a great way to build your program by saying, hey, why don't you listen to this, and we can do a challenge in our class. All of a sudden, the whole school gets to hear what your class is doing, administration, teachers, all of that. And next thing you know, your enrollment jumps the next year because they heard that little 15, 20-second clip.
That's good stuff. All right, we're going to come back to you in a couple of minutes. Let's jump over here to Ken. Ken, you were working in the Memphis public schools. You were a general music teacher. You were doing, for lack of a better phrase, the general music thing by, shall we call, traditional curricular instructional methods. And then the something rumbled inside your spirit and says, I'm going to take this a different direction. Do you mind sharing with all of us how did that take root? What was your thought process? What and take it from conceptualization to acquiring gear because you wanted to move in a certain direction, which obviously probably started with, this is where I want to move. This is the vision I have for the program. I think that's key. I want to amplify what Wayne said. He had a vision, and then he kind of tailored his protocol. Hang on, everyone. Oh, I think we're back. Wayne's back. Ken, are you back with us?
Yeah, I think you may have just been a little glitchy. Wayne, was that your view?
Yeah. Well,
he kind of froze there for a second. You're back.
Yeah. You were doing your Max Headroom thing. I just figured that was part of the presentation.
Ah, nice. Max Headroom. Okay.
Anyhow, Ken, the fire in Ken's belly gets ignited, and it's like, okay, I'm going to take this. Necessity is the mother of invention. I'm going to take this in a new route. Can you take us on your journey from what we'll call traditional-ish into the world that you eventually led your program?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Don't mind the dogs hiding in the background. They love music tech. There they go.
Gotta love live.
Let me start talking about I actually started my first job was in Delaware. I took 11 years off after high school. And when I finally went back to school and got my degree in music education, my first job was at a little private school in Delaware, and it was primarily Orff, and it was really great experience. But even there, I still, because my background was in live performance, in engineering, songwriting, so I wanted to infuse some of those experiences into the class with my students there, and it worked really well. Just on a smaller scale. I was there for 3 years. My family and I moved to Memphis, and I was still doing choir. I was hired to teach choir with a couple of classes of general music, and it was a very, very different experience. I mentioned last week when I was recounting those early days that I didn't have much of anything to start with. What I had was a lot of uninterested students who placed in the choir class because they had to go somewhere. How many of you have heard that story before? Or you have 50, 60 kids in your class. Well, we don't have anywhere else to put them, and we can put them in there. So we still managed to have a really good choir program. But the general music classes, that first year was working with eventually a set of world drums. And again, very quickly had to rely on my past experiences and introduce some tech, music tech, visual tech. We made a documentary film and got the students involved, and with a lot of different opportunities to contribute, to be creative. It was a big hit, led to some grant money, which allowed me to develop, grow the program and acquire new gear over time. And I think that's a key point in that, how do you start? Well, you start small, and Wayne did a terrific job. I think he nailed it perfectly. Is you work with what you have, you acquire what you can when you can, and you find a way to incorporate it and make it work. But you're playing to your students' interests. You want to keep them engaged, get them engaged, and allow them to have some input into the work. I mean, that's how they're going to stay interested. And that's what I did with the documentary film, which included the songwriting, the storyboarding, interviewing in front of the camera, producing behind the camera. So it grew from there. And with the grant money that I was able to get and some additional funding, the class took off. And over about 3 years, my first 3 years there, I transitioned from choir teacher with a couple of general music classes to full-time music tech, basically. The school hired a full-time choir director, and my class became, I called it music and media. And that was a full-time assignment after that. And again, something Wayne pointed to that I think is important is the administration, and this is in my experience, the administration will support you if your kids are happy, if they're successful, and especially if those other kids, the 75 to 80% of students who aren't in those traditional music programs, are flocking to your program because they're interested in what you have to offer. They see it as an opportunity for them to express themselves, tell their stories, and it's terrific. What a great experience for all of us, for me and the students. Man, I can't believe you mentioned about the competitions. I was making noises in the background, like because I did the same thing, and yeah, the kids here, and especially in the morning over the announcements, you get on there and say, hey, everybody, whatever time there's an opportunity for someone to go to we had our website and our news channel and all that. So post these, whether it was beat making, songwriting, short films, and have the school vote. All their kids are voting. They're voting for their friends, and the teachers are voting for, the best product. And what a great opportunity to get the kids excited about their work and to get other kids interested in the class itself and want to join. So yeah, the administration is going to get behind you very quickly and very strongly if that's kind of interest you're generating from the students. And of course, the parents, when you meet them, that's all your class is all my kid talks about, or something like that. I think the other interesting thing too, in talking with a lot of other teachers at various MEA conferences, certainly the one Walt mentioned, the teacher who came up to us in Connecticut, traditional piano instructor, and wanted to teach, or was told or had an interest in music tech. Where do I start? How do I begin? What I found is that perhaps more universal than some teachers may think is that it looks different everywhere you go. The standards are the same. And if we connect to those general music standards and doing this type of work, you're incorporating writing, you're incorporating history and other elements, you're tying in standards from other content areas, and you have this rich, robust class, and your kids are they're thriving. So yeah, it's going to look different everywhere you go. There's a marvelous program in Atlanta, in Gwinnett County. And if you go back a couple of newsletters ago, you remember Michael Payan, who's the middle school music tech teacher there. He also has a full-time program, just music tech. And he wrote his own curriculum. I had the opportunity to observe him and one of his middle school classes. And I'm watching what he's doing, and I'm thinking, there's no way this is the standard music tech program in this district. I mean, if it is, great. And if every teacher is doing this type of thing. And sure enough, I asked him afterwards, did you write oh yeah, these lessons are mine. I wrote my own curriculum, my own lesson plans for this. And yeah, the kids were loving it. It was incredible. So he's expanding his program because the administration is behind him, and the school is, very happy that he's there. So, I mean, that's my experience. And I have something. Walt, I'll hand it back to you. But there were a couple slides I could show if you want to eventually get to the point where we're looking at some things that we'll call them resources or tools that teachers may use or want to look into to get the ball rolling.
A great suggestion, and why don't we go ahead while you kind of get those ready to queue up? Well, I think a point that I'd like to amplify for those who are with us today. The key is that in the case of both Wayne and Ken, and also the people that we are privileged to encounter on a daily and weekly and monthly basis, are all working toward that same end. And both you guys touched it early on, in that we're all teaching the same curriculum, we're all doing the same standards, in terms of performance and listening and all those things. But there are multiple pathways to be able to get there. And apologies here. The blessing is that you have flexibility. I'm a band and orchestra guy. All of us have our own backgrounds. Those approaches typically are very set in stone. There are little variations along the way. I would advance the notion that we have the opportunity, you like a big wad of clay, that you have the opportunity to mold and shape the direction that you want to go, with a little bit more freedom than necessarily the traditional ensembles, number one. And then number two, I think what we've heard in the case with both Wayne and Ken, and even my days when I was teaching technology at Williamsport High School in Pennsylvania, was that it can reflect, at least initially, your strengths and your values, and then kind of like a tree or a flower, it begins to blossom off of that. And also, lastly, not to be overlooked, let's seize this moment to talk about the opportunity for cross-curricular within the building, within the district impact. In the case of both of your gentlemen's programs, it was absolutely stellar. That's where you have a little bit more room. And, this week's newsletter featured Jim Frankel. We all know Jim, and Jim is one of the national, if not international, leaders. But I remember him sharing the story, is that one of the projects that he had the kids do was go out and write audio images. They would go to Joe's Pizza Parlor and say, hey, can we create, like Ken, you talked about storyboards and those kinds of things, where they went and created advertorials for, local businesses along the way. So it really unlocked the creativity in a very relevant manner. I think that's one of the common threads of all of this. Think about your own vision, and certainly rely on both your experience and your creativity. And that's how you're going to get going. Now, to that end, what tools do you use? And Ken, that's sort of the setup. So let's go back to Hartford. We'll go back to the session that we presented. Wayne does this in several universities in Connecticut, but the thread is common. There's a common DNA. And what type of gear do you want or do you need? Let's get to that aspect. Let's say that you've conceptualized, yes, my principal said this to me, but I don't know how to get from A to B. I think the common denominator is, what do you want your program to do? And then working backwards, what tools do you get? If you want to build a beautiful bookcase in your office, you don't necessarily use a hand planer and hammers and nails to put that together. That you want to find the right tools for the right job. So Ken, do we have time and opportunity? How about just giving us, if you don't mind, a quick dive into the various tools that people started.
Absolutely. Let me go to the present, I guess. Okay. It doesn't take much in terms of money, and it doesn't take much in terms of the I guess, quantity, or how much gear you have to start to transform your classroom. And that's how I did it. And it sounded like, Wayne, you had a similar experience where you didn't start the job and then all of a sudden have this huge lab with all the gear you could wish for. I mean, what I started with, you could pack in a tote bag, but it sent the interest, through the roof with the kids. So start small. Doesn't take a lot. If you have to, you don't have to spend a lot to introduce dynamic new elements into your classroom. And it's true. And just some examples: one microphone and one interface, or one MIDI keyboard and a DAW. I mean, there's some free DAWs available. There are inexpensive ones you can subscribe, get subscriptions for, but it doesn't take much. So what can you do with one microphone and one interface? Here are some things. Here, Wayne's did a wonderful presentation on our first webinar on podcasting. Talk about cross-curricular opportunities with language arts, of course, telling stories, but there's some examples or some options there of how to, with one microphone, this is the interface. So the microphone plugs into this, basically converts the signal into a digital signal from that microphone into a digital signal that plugs into your computer. And then you're off and running with a DAW, a workstation, or a digital program for recording audio and other instruments. Poetry, podcasting, all of these different things. Foley sound projects. Oh, my kids love doing the Foley sound projects. Just a blast. So it doesn't take much. One MIDI keyboard, same thing. The common theme here is you can start small if you don't have the funding, and begin to transform your program and get the kids engaged. This is what some of the inexpensive gear looks like. On the left, that stack of Nano series keyboards. These are little KORG Nano products. And I mean, they range from under $100 up to maybe $200. But just an example. I mentioned popcorn fundraising. There are a lot of other types of fundraisers you could do. I mean, we had one here. My wife, who's also a teacher, used it too. I mean, we can get a lot of money, more than you might think, for a simple fundraiser. And next thing you know, you have some of this new gear. So these controllers, you plug them in. They're powered by the USB cable in your computer. You could have one station set up, two stations. Suddenly you have an opportunity for kids to be creative. And the little new tech devices, they're DIY kits. Students can build the little synthesizers or oscilloscopes, see the music. I remember walking down my hallway year after year in the science wing. And at a certain time of the year in my middle school, the teachers had their student projects hanging up on sound production or the physics, the science of sound production. I'd see sine waves, square waves. So there's a connection here. There's going to be a way to collaborate. I just know it. Well, these new tech devices, really, really cool ways. And down the road, we'll introduce some opportunities for incorporating STEM and computer science into the music or collaborating between those programs. So, I mean, there you have this Audient Evo bundle, start recording bundle. It's the interface. It's a microphone, headphones, and all the cabling you need to get started. Suddenly you have a podcast program, or you have the opportunity, an audio production studio, and that can go in a practice room, an office, or a corner of the room. Doesn't take much time, doesn't take a lot of money, doesn't take a lot of gear to begin transforming your program. So
Can you put up a couple of those devices. We know that with your that a lot of things were larger footprint. Can you share quickly the impact? You've acquired a couple like the Nanos and the micro keys and stuff, and true or false, kids are coming in over lunchtime, study hall, whenever they can, and say, hey, Mr. Spletstoser, can I take this out because I'm going to go outside in the courtyard and continue working on my project, kind of thing. Have you found that to be a new dimension of your program, where it started large and then it just kind of begins to move virally from there? Would that be a fair statement? Yeah.
Yeah, because everybody has a laptop, the Nano series is very portable. So I have kids grab either the Nano pad and go do some drum work in another room. We have a common area. Some schools have like a common area kids can go, and they sign it out and they can just go work. And I find they work better and do more work in those situations. Now every school has their own procedures and all, but the portability of all the Nano products, really, my kids love it. Yeah, everything from the Fold up to the Studio, they're fantastic. That's the Fold that Ken has right there. Yep.
Very cool.
Yep.
Full-blown MIDI keyboard controller. And
if you have to get started on a very limited budget, that's the way to go. I mean, you're not going to teach piano class with it. No, you're not going to do a lot of heavy composing with piano parts and all that with those things. No, but you can do a lot of other things that can get your kids started.
Mm-hmm.
How about for both you guys in terms of professional development? You know, as we continue to do our day jobs with SoundTree and we interact with colleges, universities, and public schools. I mean, the whole gamut of educators around the nation. There does appear to be, and would you agree or disagree that comprehensive professional development, particularly as it relates to content and curricular scope and sequence and integration with gear, is a bit of a challenge. Wayne first, and then Ken second. Wayne, what you read? You're teaching in the summertime over at Central Connecticut and Western Connecticut, as I call it. What's your experience, and what can we tell our folks that have joined us here today or are really contemplating getting into the game? I mean, even for maybe your own journey, you know, you're a natural, intellectually curious kind of guy. Can you help build a bridge that from the beginning, this is how I got to where I'm going?
Well, back to the other statement. Yeah, teachers, they just don't know what to do, hence the topic of today. So districts don't have a lot of PD opportunities. High schools, especially if you're going through accreditation, most of your PD opportunities for that year are going to be all based on what the district wants. Unless your music department is extremely large, I found in a lot of districts, they just don't let the music people out to do specific PD that would help them or benefit them because, you know, well, we let the bigger districts do it. The other aspect is, and this is a sad state, is we're not on the test. And they need to focus PD on getting English scores up and the math scores up and getting your test scores up. So all that PD money is used for those things, and music kind of gets put aside in some districts. What I find when I do go into districts to talk to music teachers about, you know, technology, there's a wide range of backgrounds, and they have to kind of agree on certain things. Maybe not doing the exact same lessons, but okay, we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this. Other districts, it's just funding. You know, we don't have any money, but yet what do we do with this? So PD is a struggle, and that struggle is really different depending on where you are. I talked to a district very close to me, and they go, I haven't been able to get out for PD in 10 years. We just have to stay in district all the time. So the summer things, we do one at Hart School of Music, University of Hartford. I do a 2-day mini workshop on technology, you know, and I tailor it to the people in the room. It's like, what do you want to know? How can I help you make your programs better?
Got it. Ken, thoughts on that in terms of where would you direct people who are saying, help Ken, I got to get some chops together, I don't know where to go. What would you suggest?
Locally, it's in my experience here in Memphis and in the area, what few opportunities, PD opportunities there are with music technology. I mean, it's usually limited to summer break, short periods, maybe over the course of a week. So I served on our state MEA. I was, Tennessee Music Education Association was the music tech chair several years back at this point. But I was also the first in that role. And, you know, it was, let's see, 2005, 6, 7, maybe 2008, 2009, somewhere around there. So still relatively new. But one of the things that became apparent very quickly is there was a need for training. There were a lot of teachers around the state who had an interest, but, you know, to your point, there wasn't PD offered either locally through their school, their district, region. So one program, and maybe this is something we have coming down the pike, I don't know, but with Wayne and our academy, is I started a program called the Music Tech Talks, Teacher Tech Talks, the T3 sessions, kind of exactly modeled after the TED Talks. And 2 parts, I guess, to provide PD for training for teachers and encourage them to come to the annual MEA conference, state conference, but also to get teachers involved, to present, not just, and perhaps have a better chance of being released or getting approval to come to these MEA conferences because they were presenters now. And it was just like the TED Talks. They were designed to be short. I think the time was like 15, 17, 18 minutes was the average TED Talk session back then anyway. And we sold out, or we filled up all the slots in the first couple of years. And it was just wonderful because all these teachers who were doing it, but they were band teachers, they were choir directors, they were integrating technology in various ways. And, the interest was, it was phenomenal. So MEA sessions, that seems to be, and certainly a lot of states that we're in contact with, or that we've attended or presented at, seem to be moving in that direction, where they're embracing music technology to the point where they have a all state modern band, or competitions, contests in songwriting, music tech compositions. So check out your MEA, your state MEA, and see what they have already existing in terms of music technology offerings for professional development, and then what that the annual conference has to offer. Chances are there's something there.
Got it. Thank you. For everyone who's joined, any closing statements, and I'll summarize, and we want to talk about some things that are coming down the pike. We have just a couple minutes left. Wayne, parting thoughts for the day?
Yeah, I like to say is, there are resources available. If you're frustrated, you don't know what to do, you're in the middle of a class, you don't know what to do, you're going to teach one next part of the year, you don't know what to do. There are resources out there. You can reach out to us, try local colleges. There are people to help you. Any child can have success with technology. So regardless of your situation, any child can have success. Implement in small steps, and before you know it, your program's just going to grow organically, and you'll be the hit of the school and you'll be teacher of the year. Just talk about us in your teacher of the year speech. That's all we ask.
Ken, parting thoughts?
An invitation wouldn't hurt either. But what Wayne said, can't really say it any better. It's a great place to end.
Yeah, in that regard. I think what we can summarize today, the Wild Wild West would not be necessarily the most adept metaphor to use, but it does, I think, sort of encapsulate where we stand right now with music education technology. The tools are voluminous. There's just a ton out there. Ken showed you a couple. Wayne's taking you on some curricular paths. So in summary, the opportunity is there. The interest is there. Doing things in an innovative way, palms up, cross-curricular, can hopefully begin to attract the resources that you can bring to put some pieces in place. I want to amplify both what Ken and Wayne said as well, that, through, just go to soundtree.com, get started, send us an email. Just please feel to reach out for an individualized conversation about it, because everybody's situation is unique. And where the intent today was first to storytell a little bit, but also paint the big broad picture of where programs are, and particularly where opportunity lies. That's what we as an organization, and with my colleagues here, and Stefan DeSalvo, who is also a member of our team, we're all experienced hands in this. One size does not fit all. And hence the title of today's session, which was someone coming up going, I have a certain set of skills, but will my skills translate? And we can, if anything, we can help you build the bridge in that regard. I want to thank both of you guys for being here today, and a reminder to everyone that this and SoundTree TV webcast and all of them reside on both Facebook and in YouTube as well. Then the opportunity just to get in touch with us directly. Looking ahead next week, it'll be the 29th. And then for broadcast, we're going to take this a step further and talk about specifically some engaging creative lessons that both of these gentlemen have done over time. It's not necessarily intended to be copycat, but again, the thought is to help unlock the creative thought that every teacher in this country has, that every one of you has, to help you be a little bit more successful in that regard. Looking ahead, starting on Thursday, there'll be the 30th, not on Wednesday with Wayne next week. But on Thursday, the 30th, Ken, I don't know if you can pull the slide real quick. We're unveiling a new program called The Doctor Is In, where Ken, myself, Wayne is available, and other members of the SoundTree team will be available to take your questions. And they can be related to music technology. They could be related to you have noise in your PA system, or my microphone doesn't work, or I don't know. Anything related to technology. SoundTree, KORG, and other brands, whatever. You just have, as you're mulling your next adventure coming into this world, but meantime you have some immediate problems and you don't know where to go for help. we have what we're calling The Doctor Is In. And it's going to be isn't that cool? The stethoscopes and the lab coats will be arriving shortly. But to your left and right, Stefan DeSalvo, who serves the upper half of the country. Behind him, Chris Sanders, who is our audio PA system expert. To me, stuck in the middle, Ken, who services the southern part of the country with his background, and our colleague Eric, who has a long history with SoundTree and is a brilliant music technologist, great keyboard player. We are there to basically I got a question, I don't know how to fix it, I don't know where to go to. Please give us a call. We'll be sending that out in next week's newsletter in terms of how you can reach us. And what answers we don't have directly, we will help you find. That's just part of our SoundTree's commitment to service to the larger community. And we're honored that you could come spend some time with us in that regard. Any questions about anything, please just reach out to us. We're here to serve. Ken, Wayne, thank you guys so much for being with us today. And please join us again next week. Okay, everyone, stay safe. Good luck with your fall concerts. Holidays are just around the corner. Eek, and we'll see you soon. All right, bye, everybody.
Yeah, everybody.
Yep.
Thank you for watching SoundTree TV.